What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Know the Therapist. I'm Jennifer, and I'm your host. I am waiting for my guest, who is Danwallace, and he'll be here in just a second. And then we will get started with the live and do as per our usual. If you have not yet grabbed something to drink to keep you company, kindly do so. And if you have not yet grabbed a notebook, this is a good time to do so, a pen, something along those lines. Grab them so that we can get started. And yeah, in just a second, then we'll start the live. Hi, Kapi. Hi, Farar. Hope you guys are doing well. Hi, Dan.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Fine, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. I hope you can hear and see me clearly.
Yes, I can. Can you hear me and see me clearly?
Yes, I can. Wonderful. So, karibu sana. We are going to start, I think, immediately so that we don't take too much time. And I think the audience is going to find us going on with the live. The good thing is that this is recorded. So if anybody misses any part, they can always go back and watch it. It will be on our Instagram page. It will be on YouTube. It will be on Facebook. So in case anybody misses anything, don't worry. You're going to get to see it. So with that said, let me welcome the people who are here already. Farar, Cupcake, and Boina Kiyu. Karibuni sana, and I hope you're doing well. So everybody, I'm Jennifer. I am the host of the show, Not the Therapist, and my guest today is Danwallace, and he's here. He's going to be telling us a bit about himself. So to get started, maybe we can start with you, Dan, telling us how your day has been, how your week has been, and how everything is going.
Okay. My week has been well, busy. Even right now, just from a session, then have this talk, then go to a session. So it's a busy day for me.
So how are you handling? How are you handling everything?
I actually do enjoy the business that comes. I like the rush, and because in our practice, you have those heightened days, and you have those kind of chilled up days where I get to do research and everything.
Yeah.
Research and rest a little bit. So today is quite busy. So I was looking up forward to this talk actually. Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's fantastic. That's fantastic to hear.
Yeah.
You mentioned you do research. Could you tell us a bit about what kind of research you do?
I do research about anything and everything to do with people.
Oh, okay.
Being a psychologist, I need to know the most recent issues that people are being challenged. As of now, I'm doing research on financial trauma. I'm looking to revamp my program for financial trauma.
Oh, wow, that's interesting. I've not had many people talking about financial trauma. What tell us a bit about that so that we have an idea. Maybe the audience has questions about financial trauma, as many as I do.
Well, financial trauma is just basically the same thing. It's not a clear diagnosis. It's not a diagnosis that is in the DSM. As psychologists, is that guide that we use, our kind of Bible, but it's not there. But it's the relationship that you have, the thoughts, the feelings, and the behavior, and the dynamics that you have around money. Okay, so getting to understand the things that we've gone, the money stories that you have, and how we get to handle finances, money. At times, it's even fun when I see people shopping alafu. They do this through the receipt without checking, and then they just drop it at the bin before leaving the supermarket. Well, that's one of kind of symptoms when you have financial trauma. One of avoiding to check maybe some of the finances that you've spent and how it's going to make you feel. Yeah. And coming from a culture where most people don't talk about money, it tends to affect a lot of people.
Oh, wow, that's quite interesting.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Can you tell? I'm very curious. Right now, I'm just so curious. I promise this is not a therapy session, but I just have so many questions. How do you end up becoming a financial trauma therapist? Like, what does that journey look like? How did you get interested in the thing?
I do. Thank you for that. I do offer therapy from a trauma-informed lens, or rather approach. So I look at everything. that involves trauma. By looking at everything that involves trauma, that means looking also into the financial aspect of it. So there are people out there who are clearly trained financial therapists, but for me, it's out of research and out of learning from others.
Yeah.
Society, as of now, I have a clear certificate that I'm a trauma therapist. No, a financial trauma therapist. No.
Yeah.
But I'm not an accountant, or I don't offer people financial advice. I just take them through the impact trauma has had of them, especially when it comes to the space of finances.
Oh, okay, that's quite cool.
Yeah.
How would I be able to tell if I have financial trauma? Give me just like 3 signs and symptoms of financial trauma.
When there are people who overspend, there are people who underspend. Other times is you can be stuck in a job, you know that you deserve more, but you don't know how to have that conversation with your boss. You don't.
Yeah.
When people are talking about finances, you don't want to have that conversation. When someone asks you how much money have you spent on this, you don't want to share, or you minimize your achievements. You know, when you come from a point where if you're doing really, really well and your people around you are not doing that well, you tend to minimize or feel guilty. When you even feel guilty when you're spending money or buying yourself money or doing things that you know you deserve for yourself, but you feel bad about it. There are people who have a challenge genuinely buying themselves clothes because they have this feeling that this money could go somewhere else that is needed, but that money doesn't go anywhere else that is needed. You need it for that specific thing. Yes. The same way with this narrative where people, especially when you're first generation wealth builder, that you come from a point where you've gone through poverty or scarcity, and you've not actually learned how to or had conversation that came around with money, and then again now you're making so much money, and your drive is I don't want to be poor. Even if you take a whole year break of not working and just spending what you have, you can't go poor, but you still have this drive and you don't get to enjoy that. You just want to keep it somewhere, but you're able to look at it and know you have that. So a lot of people have. I usually say, and I tell my clients, it's usually a good feeling, especially today is 25th, 26th. Yes. Yeah. It's usually a good feeling from 25th to around 10th. You know, when people have been paid, they steal money, they're not paid for the bills and everything. But after 10th, moving on forward, there's a shift of energy that goes being so heavy towards the another pay. Until now, someone gets money, and we change our working style even when we get money. Start feeling good, start feeling confident. But when you don't, there's that shame. So there are a lot of things, they're so subtle, but people are not really aware of them. But when you normalize these conversations, and when I'm working with clients, you get to figure out the money story that they have that is existing, where they came from, their relationship with money, and how they're handling it. And then we end up by figuring out what their rich life would look like.
Yeah. Wow. That's quite interesting. That's quite interesting because everything you're saying is something very common. We all know somebody who has either of those things going on at the same time. Either we know somebody who will not spend, we know somebody who overspends, we know somebody who has money but will not take care of themselves because they're afraid of being poor. I'm very curious now about the connection between how do you handle the conversation to do with this thing called the black tax especially among firstborns, and I'm asking this as a firstborn, so do not judge me.
I'm also a firstborn, so I like black tax, and I think when was it? Over the weekend. Yes, over the weekend I was watching a show, a South African show in Showmax called Black Tax. Yes, I just saw it and it was funny, but it was all the things were there, you know. And most of us come from a space where if you're successful, people end up now like you're paying back the taxes for the things that people have done for you. I'm not saying you should not be grateful, but some of the way that people ask for things from us is out of manipulation, out of guilt tripping us, out of making us feel like we will be cast if you don't do these things. You will never be successful if you don't do these things.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is dependent on how successful you are. And a lot of our success stories are actually not our own. They are gauged by other people, versions of the success stories.
Yeah.
So if, according to where you're coming from, living in Nairobi means you're successful. It doesn't depend where you live. It doesn't depend how you struggle. As long as someone knows where you're coming from, you're in Nairobi, you're successful.
Yeah.
And they will push people and they will constantly keep on asking money from you. And even if you're not okay with it, even if you're sinking into debt, but then you can't have those conversations. Now you see, what maintains black tax is the lack of capacity to have these financial conversations. You don't know how your parents, people around you, how they're doing financially. You don't know even if I send them this amount of money, are they actually using it for what it's supposed to? Because I've had conversations with some clients, and you can help people, but if it's for paying school fees, why don't you ask for the details from the school and you pay school fees directly there, rather than giving this person the money? Because how sure are you? Because you yourself, you say you don't feel like you're using this money for school fees. But you can't have that conversation. So you teach people to have this uncomfortable conversation when it comes to finances.
Yeah.
And learning how and empowering them. So even if you're paying the black tax, you're not paying the amount of money, and it's not actually making you're not actually getting to feel all the emotions that you feel when you're actually giving out this money. You come to a point where you feel like you're in control of your finances.
Mm-hmm.
I can choose to do it, I can choose not to do it.
Yeah.
And I'll explain why. I know people who don't even want to say how well they're doing. Because the moment I tell someone that I'm doing this well, they will always be thinking that this is where I can get my money from.
They'll start calling you Kiongos and Chairman.
Yes, Kiongos,
and you're expected to pay for everything. Yes.
Someone goes into a shopping, they do shopping, and then they tell you, but then you're paying for this.
Yes.
And you tell them you hadn't budgeted for it. They're like, no, you want
they're like,
me to sleep hungry.
Yeah, they're like, what do you mean? So you're the one who has money, you're the one who's working, you're the one who, you have a car, how do you how do you not have money?
Exactly.
Yeah.
How can you not have money and you have a car that drinks petrol, not even diesel?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
What do you say? What do you say to somebody who's trying to have a conversation around money with 5 million members, especially is this thing that people go through school and then they graduate and maybe they've gotten their first job and they want to start establishing themselves, probably get moved to a house. It doesn't have to be a mansion, but a nice place to live in. They want to start saving a little bit and maybe investing in the future. They want to start preparing themselves for the families they want to create. But then they have people dependent on them, family members, aging parents, siblings, whether younger or older. But there's a financial dependence on them from other people. What do you tell them when you see them? What do you tell them when it comes to the conversation they're supposed to have, so that they don't end up having to cut off people who are important to them, but they also don't end up having to deal with a lot of guilt because of not being able to meet these financial obligations? What's a script you will tell somebody to use when they want to have that conversation? Because I know that's very common.
Yes, it's actually very common, and thank you for the question. One thing is this: I shall tell people, I'm not an accountant, I'm not a financial advisor. I can't tell you this is where you should put your money and make money. No, my job is to, and my role is to actually show you how the things that you've gone through growing up, the experiences that you've had, and through your growth and your mind processing things around it, this is the story and the narrative that you've had that comes to money. So
Yeah.
if you feel like you have that kind of hesitation and you need to talk to people about this, I usually tell people, you need to check your finances first. And there are people, like I know myself, there are things that before, when I was not aware of it, they used to cause me stress. But now when I'm doing my own bills, I know I've put them under that point of, this is the essentials.
Yeah.
So even if the essential is spending money outside, I already know the amount of money. So I'm able to plan around it. But you have to be honest about it. If I'm actually struggling, if I'm not able to meet that obligation, I communicate. There might be a particular adjustment that you need to make. And one thing comes with first empowering yourself. Because most of you need to know what that uncle or what that aunt or that person is going to say to get money out of it.
Yeah.
To the point where you even get to know this person will start talking to me on Monday, and by Friday they will ask for money. So when I see them talking to me on Monday, and I know where this conversation will lead, then because I'm in control right now, I get to ask the question now. But they don't get to go to do this normal cycle. So you get to be aware of the previous cycles, and you get to have a clear, conscious plan that we work together on. We have that clear, conscious plan. It can also involve you reading more. It can also involve you doing research on your own, getting to do those numbers, getting to learn from other financial analysts and all those kind of people. But you have that clear, conscious plan that this is it and this is how I'm doing it. But if you don't have that and you only have an assumption, you're not going to actually spend your life living consciously, even when it comes to finance.
Yeah.
Yes. And when you don't have that control, believe you me, there's somewhere that control is.
Yeah, and for sure.
Whoever has control will run the show.
Yeah, I keep saying that if you don't make a decision, somebody else is going to make the decision for you. So somehow, one way or another, you have to decide who's going to be on the driver's seat for your life. So I think that's solid advice. Thank you so much for filling us in on that, because I think that's a very important aspect that some people might not even be aware about. So thank you so much for that info. We started off without you introducing yourself. So this is a good time for you to introduce yourself to the audience who might not know you. Tell us a bit about who Danwallace is. I know you're a psychologist, but you can tell us what kind of a psychologist you are, what trainings you have, and how long you've been practicing as a psychologist.
Okay. I think just last month, I finished my first government term. So I've been practicing for 5 years now. This is my new term. In Kenya, we do things 5-5-5 even with the government. So I've been practicing for more than 5 years. And my approach to therapy is often trauma-informed. And I know it's hard for people to have conversations in a safe space. So my focus is usually ensuring that my clients get to know that they have a safe space, that they can be themselves. It might take a while to build that relationship, to get to even know what you really need to get out of therapy. So I go with the pace of the client, and we get to have a clear set out treatment program that we follow. And yeah, so I've been practicing for 5 years. I did an undergrad, bachelor's in psychology, general psychology in Maseno University. So I graduated in 2018, so I started practicing way before my graduation. So that's when I actually realized my psychologist can be used in therapy. And it made me become even more excited, because I've always wanted to understand people and work with people and get to understand what people are going through and how to help them, how to work with them. So yeah, and from that, I don't think I've ever stopped practicing. Whether I was doing it pro bono, whether I was doing it being paid, whether I was doing it at whatever state I was doing it, either virtually, physical. I've been practicing therapy because I do enjoy doing it. It's something that I long forward to do every single morning. I actually check my calendar. I'm like, oh, tomorrow I'm busy. Tomorrow I get to relax. So I get to do these other things. So I get to enjoy that. I work with a huge demographic of people. I work with kids from mostly the age of 8 to 10. I work with preteens. I work with teenagers, and I also work with adolescents. Oh, adults, yes, adults. So the reason why I started working with kids is because most of the things that I was handling with adults started when they were kids. Things that happened when you're growing up, something profound happened and it changed you. And when you're starting to process all that, I was like, rather than waiting to handle the snowball when it's so big below the mountain, let me also work my way up the hill and put mechanisms and work with people to ensure that the snowball doesn't get so big, and then people are able to do. So I started working with kids. I work with a children's home just close by where I live, offering them therapy on a weekly basis, making the whole home a trauma-informed home. And another thing is, even when I'm working with families, it's that basic essence. I usually tell them, we are working on making this home a safe space. And include parents, obviously the consent of the kids, or any person that the child feels that they're comfortable having them. Okay? It can be not be a parent, it can be a friend, it can be a sibling. Wherever they feel comfortable, we work with them and we work in a kind of team efforts. Yeah. So, and I'm Danwallace Munene, psychologist. Yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And you work with such a wide range of individuals. You've mentioned trauma over and over again. Are there any other specific issues you handle in psychology, like specific treatments you do, mental health issues you deal with, other than the demographics? Is there anything specific?
Okay. When I say I work as a trauma-informed therapist, is that most of the things that we go through can stem out of complex trauma. So
Yeah.
I use that lens to look at things like ADHD, to look at things as addiction, anger management, anxiety, behavioral issues, challenges with mood, fertility issues,
Yeah.
coping challenges, life transitions. So anything that we go through as people, as human beings, I work with them. So,
Okay.
And as I'm working with it, I usually use that lens to look at things, and I tell people this can be a symptom, or it can be actually what you need to address.
Yeah. Okay. I see what you mean. I think that is important in case anybody is listening and they're thinking they'd like to work with you and they don't know what exactly they are struggling with or where to start. I think having an idea of which particular challenges you handle can give a potential client an idea, as well as a potential collaborator. They could be thinking of doing something with you and they don't know where to start. So I think that's clarifying that is quite important. So thank you for doing that. How you've mentioned that you like doing therapy and being a psychologist and all that, which is fantastic. I think it's an important thing that a therapist should love doing therapy. Otherwise, you're going to hate your clients and you're going to hate your life. How did you end up becoming a psychologist? Like, what's your journey? Where did you start? How did you know you wanted to be a therapist? There's some people who start out knowing that. I had somebody who told me that for them, they knew they wanted to be a counselor when they were in high school. And I was like, what? In high school, I was struggling to even stay in high school. So I don't know about your journey. How did you know that you wanted to be a therapist? Did you stumble upon it? How did you become the person you are today?
Okay. Obviously, what I usually say, most of where you find ourselves and careers that we find ourselves, it can be because of something that happened in our childhood. Either someone suggested it or you looked and you liked it. But for me, it was clearly getting to understand because I was bullied growing up and didn't feel like I would fit in. So I wanted to understand where is there that there are good people and there are people who are not so good. They're not treating you right. And there are people who appreciate you. There are people who don't appreciate you. So I was always curious in understanding people. I would read books. I would rather read books about relationships other than do my homework. And I ended up liking history a lot, and later on started studying a little bit about philosophy. So I never exactly knew that from a young age I wanted to be a therapist. Like any other child from our generation who read Ben Carson or had Ben Carson's story, I always wanted to be a neurosurgeon. But I think I'm still living that dream because I'm still operating in the brain, but I'm not opening up the head, and someone is not unconscious and I'm doing it. Yeah. So that was what I knew I always wanted to be, but I had a lot of living challenges where I could not be able to understand a lot, and I was always curious. I wanted to understand this, I also wanted to understand this. I wanted to understand a lot of things. So at times I was all over the place, especially trying to understand people. So when I actually came to realize the study of people in psychology was when I'd finished high school. But in high school, a friend of mine just told me, you always wanted to be a psychologist, but I don't remember it. I think I'd seen it, mentioned it, it was a really close friend of mine, and then years later is when he reminded me, do you know you always wanted to do this? And you're the only one person that I've seen who said they wanted to do something and they're still doing what they wanted to do. So I was told you can go to campus, study psychology. And I went to campus, studied psychology. I didn't know what I needed to do about psychology. I was so bored at class. They were teaching things that I was not really interested in. So I used to enjoy studying outside class and things that are not taught because they were different. I used to have resources, books. Now I learned how to do research and read a lot and all that. So later on is when I started offering therapy, and I realized this therapy that I was offering, these are the conversations that I was still to some degree having with people all through high school, all through at time even primary school, campus, you know. People having challenging relationship, you know what you can tell them, what you can suggest and all that. People having challenges knowing who they are, what they want in life. You basically know what you like. Maybe they can try and all that. So yeah. And then I stumbled upon therapy and I never looked back.
Okay, that's quite inspiring. I hope anybody listening can find something in there that they can borrow because it's not easy. So many people struggle with knowing what to do. So many people go like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with my career. I don't know what my passion is. I don't know what where I'm headed. But hearing that these things are possible, finding a career that you actually enjoy, a career that actually fulfills you, that's important. I think it's important for people to hear that that is possible so that they realize that them hoping for it is not delusional. I think that's important because I think if people keep thinking that they're aspiring to things that do not exist, it can be very easy for them to give up. So I think hearing your story and hearing how you ended up becoming a therapist can be very inspirational to somebody who's listening. During your time in, so you mentioned about in your childhood about bullying and that can be very difficult for kids. Of course, that's not something that's and it's not just for kids. Right now, it's an entire thing. People are doing it all the time, even on the internet. So it's very common. It's very destructive and very harmful to mental health. What have been your personal challenges with mental health that you have experienced in even in your adulthood that you can pinpoint and see that they actually are markers in your journey when it comes to mental health? What are some of those things that you can share with us?
Well, having bouts of depression, and depression is the flu when it comes to mental health. Most people get it, they come and go. So having bouts of depression and at times not knowing that you're depressed. Now, when you're a therapist and you're looking back at your life, I'm able to pinpoint at this particular point, I was actually depressed. But to some degree, I used to find ways that would cope. I used to avoid substances. They were never my thing. I'd seen history of how substances would do for people and drugs. So I used to avoid them when I was not feeling okay. But for me, in high school, it was hockey, playing football. So sports was a thing for me. Or taking walks. I think walks has always been a thing for me ever since I was young and playing. So the field has been a place for me. But well, as you age, you start learning that the field cannot be that conducive all the time. So, so I have been depressed from time to time, and those kind of challenges, yes, they have been there. I've also experienced bouts of anxiety. I've had moments where I just couldn't, you know, I just couldn't. And I think I was talking to my friend because I think last year, yes, mid last year is a point that I resigned from the job that I was doing, and my friend was asking me why, and I just saying I want to go and rest because I was tired. I was always anxious. I was always close, irritable. I was depressed. I was low. And you're living something that is paying you on a constant basis. You're growing into it. You're growing to it, and people don't actually get to understand why you're doing it, why you're living, especially with unemployment being so rampant. So, but I resigned and then went home. Used to wake for 40, and then now I'm like, I wake up for 40. I don't know where to go. I don't have anything to go. So getting to that point, having conversations, even going back to therapy, getting to rediscover myself, and actually tell people rediscovering yourself is not something that you do once. It's not something that you do once. It's something that you do continuous. You can have life transitions, and then you end up realizing that you need to make adjustments in your life and all that. So that really helps. Seeking professional help helps. From conversations with a psychiatrist, having a psychiatrist review, I got to intentionally invest in my mental health more than I've ever done before. And then out of it, I got this clarity, and I even learned ways to get into myself that I never knew before. So, yeah, so that was recent. That is what happened recently. So, yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. That's very personal, of course, and I appreciate that you're sharing it because of many reasons. One, it debunks the myth that mental health professionals do not struggle. There is a bunch of people out there who believe that mental health professionals have aced it. They have finally found the solution. They are doing well. They never struggle. But hearing your story, of course, then that confirms that we are human beings, and it also takes mental health professionals off the pedestal so that people can realize that we're human, we struggle with everything that we treat. We are not immune to pain, and it is part of life. So we relate to clients more when they realize that we also go through some of these things. And the second reason I believe that your story is also important for you to share like that is that this has been said a lot, and I hate being the one to repeat it. I don't like repeating it, but I'm going to say it, that it's often quoted that men rarely share their personal issues that they struggle with. And so the reason I don't like speaking about that is because I feel that saying it always perpetuates that particular narrative. Yet I want us to be part of the people who create those spaces where men can speak, and so that we don't keep saying that men don't talk about it. Well, like we have a space where men can talk about it, and here are some men who have spoken about it. So thank you for sharing your story, because I think that's another reason why it's very important for you to do so. And any man listening can get to feel that speaking out is important. Getting access to mental health is important. Mental health services are not just for one gender. So I think it's very important that we share these personal stories, even if they're painful, because they have the potential of changing somebody's life. Somebody is listening who doesn't even know. In your case, of course, as a mental health professional, you have access to mental health knowledge and professionals. How easy was it to find a therapist? What was it like your first time when you went to therapy? What was your experience? I know I hated my therapy sessions the first time I went. So I don't know about you. Tell us how your therapy went the first time, and if you're still the same person.
The first time, the first time I didn't know I was being offered therapy. It was in high school.
Wait, what?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I didn't know I was being offered therapy. It was in high school. I think back then, I think that was cancelled. So just going through something, and someone just asked me, what is going on?
Yeah.
You were trained for that. So I started talking, and I felt better. And then I told them afterwards, you know what, I feel better just speaking about it. And they're like, yes. So would you like to do this again? I was like, yeah, sure. So having those therapeutic moments and sessions helped me through a particular point in high school. So that was my first experience with therapy. But then again, it didn't really go deeper, because I don't think the person was trained enough to maybe do what I'm doing now. They were trained the basics, and that basics help at that particular point. But something that I can point out right now is doing therapy. At times it's a challenge, especially when you're a therapist. And when you know a lot of people, chances lie, and actually the doctors make the worst patients. Because we are mental health practitioners. So at times, there was a time I did therapy and I felt like if I was the one who was the therapist, I would have taken this approach, and I caught that, and then I brought it up, and I was told, just when you walk in, and in the beginning of the session, just leave your therapist out there, and come in as Danwallace, the person who's not a therapist. So I had to learn how to be a patient rather than a client, and that was really helpful. So basically, getting to know where I'm able to get these resources was easy, but also at times a challenge, because at times you'd want someone who doesn't know you, or rather you don't have that professional background with, so you want someone who is completely, but they are a stranger, someone who start building that relationship together. But then again, so within our field, it's so slim, to a particular degree, like my previous therapist was someone that I've worked with, and it was, I think there was an hesitation from them, but that was coming from a point of having a dual relationship, and I had to insist, and we came up with that plan that the dual relationship, the personal relationship will be taken away, and we do this professionally and everything, and it took a while, but it was helpful for me, because I knew this person would help me.
Yeah.
And I went to them as a client, not as a psychologist, and they really helped me a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. Mental health professionals, therapists are very difficult clients sometimes. Even me, I was a difficult client, I have to admit. But luckily, I was able to find a therapist that I could work with. So I think it's important because, again, finding a therapist is not the easiest thing. So eventually finding somebody that you can work with is always a very big relief, because you feel that you finally found somebody that fits. And I think that is quite important. In your mental health journey, who are some people that have been super helpful that you think without them the journey would have been harder than it was, and people who have just come through for you in your life? Who are some of these people that you can recognize?
Let me start from far. I might forget people in the middle here, but I can remember the people. So the first person was my first supervisor. I did my first practice on volunteering at Kisumu County Hospital. So I was at Ward 8, which is a psychiatric ward. So Dr. Faith really helped me. And even until now, we do keep in touch and everything. And I see some of our clients. So she was the first person who told me, okay, you're doing a lot of things, just settle down, see what you're able to do, and then you can work towards there. So she was the person who told me, okay, don't do 100 things, just do one, and then let's start from there. Do one, then let's start from there. And then in the middle, there's a time I also had a mentor who mentored me into psychology, helped me personally actually, by making me be able to gain a lot of self-confidence. And they even asked me a question: if someone was to buy you, if you're a product, what would they be buying?
That was oh wow, that's a very good question.
Yes. You know, when you're buying a particular drink, when you're buying a particular product, food, whatever, you know exactly what you're getting. But if I was to buy right now, what will I be getting? And at how much? I just stood, we were seated. It was, I think, towards the evening. We were still working together that time. I just couldn't find the answer.
Yeah.
And then a few months later, they asked me, and then I gave them a straight answer. And they're like, that's far much better than the silence that you gave me. But I don't think it's exactly the same thing that I see in you. but you go figure it out. So it helped me build confidence and see my worth. And it's the same question at times I usually ask myself. Whenever I'm thinking or feeling low and doubting, in this practice at times you feel like you're not doing enough, or you feel like things are not working out as you're supposed to have them, they're supposed to work out. And I actually keep on asking myself, as a therapist, if someone was to buy you, since you're a therapist, you're a psychotherapist, you're a product, what would they be getting?
Yeah.
And then I remind myself why I'm doing this. I remind myself of why I actually do it, what gives me that vigor. Yeah, and someone else was my last therapist. That lady used to ask me some difficult questions, and it was fun. And I was in this point where I was in a tunnel, and they were not the light at the end of the tunnel. To some degree, they felt like they felt like they were that matchstick that you have, that you light, and then it lights for a particular duration of time. You see where you're supposed to go, and then it goes off, and then you have to light it again. So the lighting was each session, and when the match was maybe after the session, and then it's on, and then to the next one, and then at that time, the dark space that I was in, I got myself, I was able to get out of the tunnel, but at this particular moment, someone who really stands out, then she's actually maybe listening. She's a really good friend of mine. We consult. She's someone I've known for I think 3 years now, and I've seen her grow. She has seen me grow. She's that person who asks me, "You said you're going to do this. Why have you not done it? You are doing so well. What happened?" So that person who is there for me professionally and even personally, which is so rare, and in a genuine and authentic way. So yeah, she's Zena. She's also a psychologist, and yeah, so we work together closely, and she has helped me both personally and professionally. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's quite important. Finding those people who are within that inner circle like that is as you've said, is very rare. How do you? Because many people struggle with finding friends professionally, finding professionals who are also good friends as well, finding people to bring in their inner circle. The older people get, will struggle to make friends. What is usually your go-to tactic that you would advise people who are struggling to make friends, authentic and real friends, now that you have one? What is something that you would advise for them to practice to get better friends?
Well, I don't think there's one shoe fits all.
Yeah, true.
Yes, that is there. There's no one shoe fits all formula. So the one thing that has often stood out is authenticity. That aspect of being honest.
Yeah.
But it takes time to get that. And there are people who are seasonal. I've had professional friends who are seasonal, who came at a particular period of time, helped me through a particular transition and phase. And right now we can go 2 years without talking. And there are people who we met, went through a phase, and ended up like a year without talking, and then started talking again, and it was like we never stopped talking. So you get to see that aspect of authenticity. But then also, if the one thing that I've learned is patience and believe the people that you have, and not overlooking anything that you know is a red flag. So if you've gone through relational trauma, it can affect your radar of detecting red flags. So with my own healing journey, I came to realize what is red flag for me. So that is easier for me. But for some people, it's harder for them to ensure that they have a consistently healthy relationship.
Yeah.
Because a green flag can be a red flag for someone else. Because maybe someone is showing you genuine care, but you feel like they have an ulterior motive because of the history that you've had, and you don't want to trust them. So
Yeah.
it takes a while for you to get to know this. But I usually say you can have time, but people are like trees. When you look at life, it's like a tree. The people are like leaves. When the wind comes, some of them will fall off. The wind is blowing. When the rain comes, some of them will be hit and they will fall. When the seasons change, some of them will fall. And at a particular season, like the leaves, they will blossom and come out and shine so green. So, and then there are people who are like branches all over. They seem strong, but if something heavier than the strength that they have comes by, they break. And you can't really trust them. But then again, around us, we have people who are like roots. People who are so deep, people who replenish us, people who fuel us, people who actually support us in a genuine perspective. And they are always there and constantly there for us. Okay? And those are the kind of people that we should often look forward to and look to having and maintaining relationships with. But you need to figure out who is a leaf, who is a branch,
Yeah.
who is the root.
Yeah. I think that's quite important. If you don't figure that out for yourself, nobody really can tell you. You have to be the one, because it's a very personal journey. Nobody can really tell you that this person is this thing or the other, because the relationship is yours with them. So yeah, I think that's well said. That's very well said. Thank you so much for sharing. Before we go on, I just want to say hi to some people who are in here. Starting with Daisy Kathambi and Boina Kiru as a question. I'm going to read it in a second. There's Salim Buthia, the Johnson Ngina, and Ediel Kilonzi. That's my very good friend. Peter and Zen and Sharon Kahumbu. Hi, Sharon and Miss Barden. Thank you so much for coming through. So Boina has a question. She says, how do you help a friend who is employed? The child got a partial scholarship in an international school. However, the fee is still quite steep and they are struggling. So I'm thinking this question is connected to what we started with in the beginning about financial trauma and all that. And I'm seeing like the question is also leaning on whether Boina can be of help or whether the person has to help themselves. So how do you want to react to that, Wallace?
First of all, I'm not a financial advisor, but one thing is you need to know in what space are you able to support someone. At times, we come from a society where, or rather you come in a space where me supporting you emotionally is the only way I'm able to support you at this particular moment. Me being able to support you physically is the only way I'm able to support you. Me being able to support you financially, it might be the only way I'm able to support you. So at times, knowing actually where you as a person, you're able to support this other person. And at times, it's from a simple question of, how do you like me to help you? And if you realize the help that this person needs, you're not able to give them, because the same thing I usually ask clients, how do you like me to help you? If I realize you're not able to work together and I'm not able to meet your needs, I refer you to where I know you're able to get help. So at times, I can choose to be a helper, and I feel helpless because the way I'm helping you is not the way that you really would like me to help you, or is not the way that I'm able to help you, but helping you look for other avenues to help you. Like maybe you're not able to help this friend financially by helping them pay the school fees, but if it means that finding ways to increase their source of income will mean they're able to offset some of this burden financially, is that can be a way that you help them. If it means being able to talk to this person, venting when being a venting space, this person wants to talk and you're the listening near the shoulder to cry on. If that is the only way that you're able to help them, you help them. At times, this kind of helps offer a particular sense of clarity, and someone can be able to see what they're able to do. So at times, even as helpers, we need to know and look at our capacity to help. because, and don't overpromise or promise something that you're not able to keep or meet. I've seen people promising, the same thing that you see most of the time in burials, that the out transformation will educate these kids, we do this and this and this, and then after the burial, the people are promising are not there. And you can't get them accountable. But then it does something to that person that you told that you're going to help them, because you give them a sense of hope. And they know that they have someone. So when you don't meet that bargain, it means that you end up, to some particular degree, traumatizing them. Because if it changes the narrative that they have, any person that promises me, I don't really expect them to meet that promise. This can be the parent with a friend, or this can be the child. Yeah, so we need to know how you're able to help. At times, you can be so helpful to someone by referring them where they can get professional help.
Yeah, I think that's very true. Boina, Kiru, I hope you've been well answered. I believe that has been very well answered. Know how you can help and come through for the person at where you can help, because you can't be everything to the person, and just meet them where you can, and that is support. It can be emotional, it can be financial, it can be anything, but meet them where you can, as well as you can. So with that said, we are coming very close to the end of this live session, and it has been great. There's a lot of stuff that is going on right now in the country. On one hand, we have cults that are stabbing people, and on the other hand, we have parents who are taking the lives of their children. We have spouses who are hurting their partners in very bad ways, and it seems like there's just a lot that is happening out there right now when it comes to our country. And as a mental health professional, what is something that you would like to say about the state of the nation when it comes to these mental health issues that are popping up left, right, and center? What do you wish more Kenyans understood about mental health, and where do you think the gap is at the moment? Where are we missing the mark?
Okay. First of all, let me put this across. I don't watch news. The reason I don't watch news is the philosophy around news and what is being said. And a lot of news can be traumatic. That I know for me. When I see a lot of accidents, I get to have a genuine fear of being on the road. So I do protect myself from a lot of information that I get. But I've heard of those stabbings, the two Kitengela stories of the people in, or the chicken in, then the mother, the cult. I've also seen some videos. And I like looking at the top page. That's how I get my information, at times through people's status. And that's how I get my information, because I'm able to manage it. If I feel I'm not able to manage, I don't. So one thing that I would say is that it's really concerning and it's really saddening, because it's not only traumatizing the people that have actually gone through, it's also traumatizing any other person that is viewing these things. So that's why if you have a mass, to some degree, you have a mass shooting, and this is how people learn how to express themselves, or this is how they're going to get the word through. The next person who feels that they need to get expressed, that's how they're going to do it, And that's the unfortunate nature of it. When you spread information, people will use it however they want to use it. But it's really concerning, and I think I would challenge people to check how are you feeling about what is happening at this particular moment. What is it revealing to you? What is it bringing it out of you? I've heard of people who I was talking to someone, and then they're telling me how some people are saying how they even have gone numb from watching a video. Others are just like, they can't even think about it. They just had the story, they didn't want to look at it because of the emotion that it is going to evoke within them. So getting to understand that. And then another thing is, people should be aware of, just like how when you know you are sprained your ankle and you're hurt physically, you're able to find help, someone to hold you, and for you to go and get help, a bandage, and all that. It's the same way with things that are mental, things that are emotional. We need to be aware that, and people need to know that you can talk to someone about these things. And most of the time, yes, it can be a friend, and it can also be a professional. Because at times, from my understanding of something that I will borrow from, like an acute suicidal phase, this is where someone just focusing on dying by suicide and ending however they're feeling through suicide. And it's acute, they've not thought or planned about it. And if you do something that gets them out of that phase, can help them. Some people it's a phone call. Other people just bumping them on the road. You know? Other people is like restricting them from doing something, you know, or talking to them through that. So you find a lot of things people do, they may not have premeditated. They may not have thought about it. And one thing that we know about the brain is that when it's exposed to particular substantial toxic stress, it can be over duration of time, or it can be sudden. It can act upon in a way that it's really concerning, and it can cause harm on the people around. I'm being very cautious on the words that I use. So, yeah, so you find whatever is going on, even like my understanding with cars is that we have this thirst of, it's not even a thirst, it's a need of feeling like we belong, feeling like people desire to be with us, people do love us. And when you look at around the psychology of capitalism, is most of the time these needs are met. So people tend to overlook the cost that they have to do to endure these things. People are out there looking for community where they would feel like they belong, where they feel like people genuinely call them a brother or a sister, and they mean it. Not you're calling me a brother or a sister because we are born by the same parents, or we grew in the same space. So when we find healthy ways and we have spaces in which people feel like they are worthy, people feel like they are loved and cared for, people feel like the people around them genuinely do desire to be with them, it becomes easier, and it creates this sense of a safety community that people can be who they are and their needs are met. But when you come from a space where you have these needs not met on a consistent basis, it can end up making the situation being wherever you get these needs met, wherever you feel worthy, wherever you feel people actually genuinely, or rather, whenever you feel people love you and care about you, whatever the cost you have to pay, that doesn't matter. Because wherever you are, or where you're coming from, if you don't get those things, then where you're getting these things, and that's why at times you find that's why peer pressure defeats people. Because let me give an example of a life of a teenager who is trying to figure out their life. A parent is like, I don't want to be spending time with his friends. I don't want you to be talking to so and so and so and so. But you as a parent, you're not talking to me. You as a parent, you're not always home. Anytime you talk to me, it's showing me all the wrong things that I'm doing. You don't even acknowledge the little things that I do. If I find someone who does that for me, chances lie, if the cost of it is using drugs, if the cost of it is stealing, if the cost of it is not focusing in my studies and trying to do everything that I can to maintain this relationship, I will. But then again, most of these things you end up finding their term is indiscipline. And rather than helping the person, it ends up being treated as an indiscipline case. every behavior, there is a thought and a feeling to it. And behind all that, there's a need that needs to be met. But most of the time, we just look at the behavior. We don't look at what is underneath. We don't look at the need that needs to be met. Yeah.
Yeah, that's quite true. I like what you mentioned about in the beginning when you said about the consumption of news, watching news, and a lot of it being very triggering in many ways for many people. I think it is necessary for anybody who's listening to make a point of being very cautious about the stuff that they consume, because what you consume, the kind of media you consume will shape your perception of the world. And if you're consuming a lot of dark material that shows you how bad the world is, you're constantly going to live in paranoia, thinking that everything is bad and everybody is evil and people are out to get me. I am in danger. And that, of course, then triggers very many chain reactions in your body and in your mind. And it does nothing for your nervous system. You're constantly dysregulated. You're constantly struggling to maintain your anxiety to live and enjoy life in general. Because you're constantly thinking about all the bad things that could go wrong at any given point. So I highly encourage anybody listening to be very cautious about the kind of content they are consuming, understanding that right now everything seems to be breaking news. The media is also on the internet, on the Twitters and the Instagrams and Facebooks of our times, and everything is being broadcasted immediately. But that does not mean that because everything is breaking news that you have to take it all in. It's okay for you to ignore some stuff, and it's okay for you to actually consider your mental health before you start consuming all these things. You don't have to follow these news channels if you don't want to. You don't have to consume all these breaking news that are not always breaking, because this constant state of alertness does not do anything for your nervous system or your mental health. It actually just harms you in so many ways. So highly encourage that people watch out for that and be very keen with your media consumption. It determines a lot about how you see the world, and that is something that's quite important. So, Wallace, as you come to the end of this live recording that has been fantastic, would you mind sharing with the audience some mental health resources that you think would be beneficial for them? Maybe somebody does not have the opportunity to go to therapy, either because they don't have the time or the finances, or they don't have a therapist anywhere close to them, or they just want to start on the journey of developing their mental health, getting better when it comes to mental health. Do you have any resources you'd like to share with the audience that you believe would be super helpful for them from a mental health professional point of view? That would be great.
There's a lot of content in YouTube, but there's one thing that I like. There's one that is called the Medcircle. This is where professionals actually come on board and talk, and they discuss about a lot of mental health issues. It's something that has been there for years. It's people talking and sharing their life experiences, and that's actually one of such great resource that people can use. I know another one, I don't remember the exact name about it, but I would recommend Medcircle. Medcircle in YouTube is such a good resource. It's something that I've also found myself most of the time watching to get to see when I'm saying you're also doing research and all that. It's something that I watch. And yeah, that for now. That is what I'm going to offer for now. Yes.
I also like Medcircle. I think it's a really wonderful resource, as you're saying. I have been a huge fan from the very beginning. They have extremely good content, and it's well researched, and it's based on science, and it is just brilliant. So I can't say enough good things about them. So yeah, thank you for bringing Medcircle into the mix, and definitely we'll share that with the audience. If somebody is listening to this and they are considering getting in touch with you for therapy services, or to collaborate on something, or just to chat with you for something, they want to be your friend, I don't know. Somebody listening to this and they want to just get in touch with you, what is the easiest way for them to do that? And where can they find you?
Well, through this conversation, you told me to change my IG from private to public. So that is the first way of using that.
Yeah.
And I don't know if people do share their contacts, but they can use my IG. You can just DM me.
They can just come to the DM.
Yes, and I also use the same thing on Twitter.
Yeah.
Most of the time, that's where I spend most of the time. On Twitter, the same thing, Danwallace Psych.
Yeah.
Or Danwallace Psychotherapist. So yeah, that one we can still use that. So for now, yes, you can use that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I will also share that in the description box of this video, so that anybody who needs to get in touch with you can find you and easily get in touch with you and see where you guys have synergy and where you can collaborate together. That would be fantastic. So as we come to the end of this session, thank you so much for coming through, accepting my invitation to know the therapists. I am sure somebody has listened to this and they have been immensely moved by you and your story and the kind of work that you do. And so I appreciate you spending the time. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you chose to be with us this evening. So thank you very much for honoring my invitation. As a parting shot, I don't know if there's something you'd like to say as a parting shot as we end this conversation to the audience, something just to say goodbye to them. And yeah, I think that'd be a good time to say it.
Okay. Well, the word can be such a scary place, but with a little bit of learning, we can learn how to create a safe space for ourselves and for other people. And at times, this can mean you getting some professional help, which is there. And it's actually really important because most of the time, the thing that you go through never started with you. You come from a colonized family or country. You are nearly all of us were colonized. So we know someone was. So there's already intergenerational trauma going through. So the more you are aware of the things that happen to us, the impact that they have, we tend to learn how to live life from a conscious perspective. And it's okay. It's okay not to be okay, but it's not okay to actually don't want to seek any help. Help is there for you. All you just need to do is reach out to your hand and you can find some.
Yeah. That's very true. Thank you so much for sharing that. Again, thank you for coming to the show. Everybody who has been here as an audience member, thank you so much for coming through. Brenda Nelson and Wamboi Gisheha and with Maria Kawira and Evans Victor, thank you so much for coming through to the live, and everybody else who has been here from the very beginning. I appreciate your time and your presence, and I will see you next time on the next episode of Know the Therapist with another therapist who will be getting to know. So take care of yourselves and have a wonderful rest of the week. Take care of yourselves and take care of your mental health. See you. Bye, Danwallace.
Bye.